Welcome to this special anniversary feature celebrating the collaboration between PAPERI and the Sustainable Sciences Institute. Capacity building is not only about delivering training, it is about empowering people with skills that continue to shape their careers and strengthen research within their communities. One of PAPERI's proudest collaborations during the past 2 years has been with the Sustainable Sciences Institute, whose commitment to strengthening scientific capacity has inspired researchers around the world.
Today, we are honored to share a special anniversary message from Dr. Adil S. Wakil, Vice President of the Sustainable Sciences Institute.
But first, our participants share how the workshop influenced their research journey.
Hello, my name is Adil S. Samuel from Liberia. I'm proud to be one of the many beneficiaries of the Pan-African PGS Education and Research Initiative, which I considered as one of the meaningful contributors to research development in Africa. The trainings I have attended, including the workshops sponsored by the Sustainable Science Institute, have actually helped bridge key gaps in my research knowledge and played an important role in developing my independence as a researcher. Through these opportunities, I continue to grow, and I'm grateful to the families.
The most valuable experience I gained from the PAPERI training, believed in collaboration with Sustained Science Institute, was strengthening my scientific writing skills, especially understanding publication standards and how to structure research for real-world impact. This experience had made me more confident and precious in communicating my work and better preparing to contribute to research and publications. What stands out most is that the training goes beyond skills. It enables researchers like me to actively participate in global scientific community. In one sentence, PAPERI means empowering researchers to communicate science effectively and make meaningful impact.
Hello everyone, my name is Mu'taz Muhammad and I'm from Sudan. It was a great pleasure that I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Sustainable Science Institute and Pan-African PGS Education and Research Initiative for organizing the Scientific Writing Workshop. The workshop was very well organized and incorporate all the major components of science communication, including manuscript format, ethics, peer reviewing, and useful writing techniques. It was much appreciation that I express my thanks to Sustainable Science Institute and Pan-African PGS Education and Research Initiative for their effort for fostering scientific research development among African scientists. Thank you once again to the organizer and workshop leaders.
These reflections demonstrate what meaningful partnerships can achieve. But what does sustainable scientific capacity really require? Let us now hear from Dr. Ed Wakil.
Hello, my name is Ed Wakil, and I am Vice President of Sustainable Sciences Institute. I'm very pleased to be asked to give a voice memo to PAPERI in honor of PAPERI's second anniversary. And I would like to thank Wafa Rashid and the PAPERI members for this invitation. We at SSI, and myself included, are very pleased to have supported PAPERI's 2 workshops and strongly encourage long-term commitment to keep fighting for science in Africa. I've been given a few questions to address in this memo, starting with an introduction to SSI and its mission statement. With that, I would like to give a little bit of history of SSI. Dr. Eva Harris really has been the engine behind SSI's deep dive into promoting scientific capacity in resource-poor settings around the world. When Eva was a young graduate student in the late 80s and 90s, she was driven by a question of how can she make scientific developments lead to actual practical impact in resource-poor countries in terms of public health. Well, she, of course, became very familiar with molecular techniques and laboratory protocols, and in those days, PCR technology, or polymerase chain reaction, was really just getting off of the ground, and a very exciting technique that she thought she could take this knowledge and translate it to practical improvements in countries like Nicaragua. And indeed, that's what she did. She worked down there, developed studies to collect samples and promote the use of PCR tests to identify what are the causative agents of certain febrile illnesses. And she became an expert in dengue fever and other viral infections. And indeed, through workshops and training programs, was able to have real practical effects. For example, in, I believe, the early 90s, there was a febrile illness in the mountains or the hills of Nicaragua, and public health officials thought for sure this was a dengue outbreak, and individuals from one of SSI's workshops went up to that region and found no dengue. So this was really puzzling, and indeed they showed their good quality scientific data where they ran multiple PCR tests and other diagnostic studies showing negative results, yet positive controls. Well, eventually, the CDC was called in, looked over the data, and said, wow, this is pretty convincing. Let's go look at this febrile illness again. And sure enough, it turns out it was an outbreak of leptospirosis, which is a bacterial infection. And once this was identified, the use of doxycycline and basic antibiotics stopped the outbreak. So that's a practical impact of that effort. Now, for myself, my background is more in clinical medicine, and I came to San Francisco to do, in particularly, a gastroenterology fellowship. During my medical school and internal medicine training, I did have some times to work overseas, and I really liked gastroenterology because I thought it also was very applicable to gastrointestinal diseases around the world. And I developed an interest in immunology and worked in an immunology laboratory studying T cells at UCSF. With the interest in immunology, I actually got very interested in liver transplantation and decided ultimately to become a liver specialist and to work in a liver transplant team. Now, this aspect of medicine is very technical. It's kind of the pushing the science of medicine. And I, at the same time, wanted to balance that experience with not forgetting about basic infectious diseases in the GI system, and particularly the liver, and of course viral hepatitis comes to mind. Indeed, I had one of my patients who was originally from Egypt and developed hepatitis C as a young boy, and that of course led to cirrhosis and liver failure as an adult. And he became my patient, and I helped him get a liver transplant and do extremely well after that. And he was very excited to try to support the development of science, and particularly a focus on hepatitis C studies in Egypt. And he became a big supporter of SSI and research that I did at the time at UCSF. Well, those resources we put to we put into play in Egypt with multiple workshops, training programs on hepatitis C, developing and improving scientific techniques. What we like to do was train the trainers. We developed small grants programs and even a biorepository at the National Liver Institute. And importantly, worked with the Ministry of Health and my close colleague, Dr. Stuart Cooper, also a liver specialist and indeed a well-known, internationally recognized liver immunologist, helped to work with some additional experts, I think a total of about 6 or 7 individuals, to put together Egypt's first white paper by the Ministry of Health on any disease, but in this case it was on hepatitis C in 2008. And it really laid out in about a 60-page document a summary of the condition of hepatitis C in Egypt, how it occurred, what are the consequences, and also an approach to dramatically reduce the transmission of hepatitis C. And indeed, that's what the policies in the white paper indeed did. And importantly, it set up a precedent for the Ministry of Health to bring local experts with only a handful of international experts to help create a quality document that led to quality policies that actually reduced acute hepatitis C infections by about 30 to 40% in the country over the years ahead. Also, this process became very important when new treatments came along in 2015 and 16 and ultimately led to the world's largest treatment campaign for hepatitis C in Egypt, which was immensely successful. So ultimately, Egypt, which used to have about 12 to 14 million cases of hepatitis C in the late 90s, now has less than 1 million cases of hepatitis C and has really helped to control that infectious disease and of course was the country in the world with the most hepatitis C and indeed had more hepatitis C than Europe and North America combined, going back to how hepatitis C was transmitted in Egypt back in the 70s and 80s with the spread of the virus through lack of sterile techniques, if you will, with widespread treatment campaigns to schistosomiasis. But that is another bit of history. But the use of PCR, adapting techniques for the developing world, training the trainers, and promoting what I like to call public health science, targeting in particularly infectious diseases, and helping local researchers address their own public health infectious disease challenges is really the mission of SSI. I have an additional question here on my perspective regarding the most critical needs for building scientific capacity in Africa today. Well, this is a really challenging question. And I would first address this question by making sure that the parties involved have a solid understanding of what actually is science. What does it take to study nature's secrets, and through that process gain knowledge on how nature works, and whether this is biology, physics, chemistry, these principles apply. And in order to do that, one makes lots of mistakes. You have to have good observations. You have to come up with hypotheses as to what you think is going on, and then try to design experiments to test that hypothesis, and then analyze data very clearly and carefully and come up with appropriate conclusions. This is a difficult process with many ways that mistakes can be made, but those mistakes are valuable because one learns from them. And so understanding the scientific process is critical for the individuals involved, critical for the society and the governing bodies to understand what actually it takes to make good science and gain valuable understanding of nature. So once those scientific principles are understood, one can see that this is a trial and error process, and therefore one must have long-term commitment to supporting science, not just a 6 months funds and the funds go away, or somebody's hired for a brief period of time, then they switch projects and somebody else comes on. And it really takes commitment by the individuals involved, commitment by the supporters and funders, commitment by the institutions, whether they be universities or ministries of health and so forth. So that understanding is key. And thirdly, I'd like to stress that to support science, one needs to support the best ideas. One needs to be in a system of merit, where merit, the quality of a grant proposal, the best grants get funded. If one writes a grant or a study and it doesn't get funded, but one learns about how to make that proposal better, that's part of the process. And then when they submit the proposal the second or third time, it's much better and it gets to the level of being funded. So supporting high quality throughout the process leads to quality science. Because anybody can use the word science and say, oh, this is scientifically proven. And you go, show me how. Who did it? How did they do it? Was it well done, or was it full of mistakes and the conclusions were actually wrong? So these are the questions to keep asking oneself. So now I'll address the third question posed to me, was a reflection of the PAPERI SSI Scientific Workshops. Well, SSI and myself are very pleased to have supported a couple of workshops. I was so pleased to read the evaluations, and I would say that what struck me the most was the enthusiasm of the members of PAPERI. That is exactly what we want to see about science. And I think the workshop, through the training of Marilena and others in enhancing scientific and grant writing skills and publication skills, can lead to such an increase in people's confidence and enthusiasm for science. So I was so very pleased to see that, and strongly encourage that type of enthusiasm be fostered further. And I think PAPERI has been an excellent organization and vehicle to help really drive increased understanding and interest in genomics. And I am really excited to see PAPERI grow and expand and meet challenges in the future. So the fourth question posed to me was advice regarding emerging African researchers and how to strengthen their science and scientific skills. I would suggest, and I think PAPERI is doing this to a degree, but I don't know how much, but to really develop journal clubs journal clubs where a single scientific paper in the field of genomics or gene sequencing or traits in certain human populations, and taking a single paper and a group of individuals sharing that paper amongst themselves and then meeting together to discuss it and discuss its strengths, its weaknesses, perhaps inviting one expert, whether they be from Africa or outside Africa or even both, to learn more about how to judge and assess an article and a research study. That, I think, is a low-cost goal and can lead to a deeper understanding of the science and better investigations by the individuals involved. So I would strongly encourage journal clubs. And I think you also do a good bit of projects to invite guest speakers to talk about their stories and how they did what they did, and that's all good. But I think also diving into the science in a detailed manner can be really valuable. Furthermore, looking at collaborations with international organizations or other organizations in Africa that may not be in exactly the same field, but maybe in other aspects of science, and looking how to potentially bring in more resources, share resources, or try to spread them around to get maximum impact is also a good strategy. Before I end, I would like to say a word or two about a close colleague that I believe Wafat knows and was one of Wafat's mentors, and that is Samira Izad. She, I think, is a great representative of scientific skill development from Africa, and has a story of how she worked with local and international researchers in Egypt in hepatitis and liver disease and public health, and became a teacher and mentor at the National Liver Institute, and was a complete joy to work with. And I'm so pleased to hear that Wafa is one of her students. And in her memory, I would like to really honor her and the work that she did. And clearly it's great to see that she's impacted people like Wafa to continue the efforts of developing science in Africa. And so that brings us to a message for PAPERI community in the years ahead, and that is to keep moving forward, keep fighting for science. Do not forget the principles which underline science and how many people over the years have sacrificed for the ability to promote science and not let others try to manipulate it or try to suppress it. But science offers the hope for our humanity to get better and meet the challenges of the future. And I'm so pleased to be working with you all and a partner for advancing science in Africa, and look forward to the future. Once again, congratulations on PAPERI's second anniversary. Thank you.